Chapter 3. The Downside to Having Camp Counselor Energy. Chapter Summary. Gods, he thought that Nico would have prepared him for all the slightly creepy and weirdly defensive children, but this kid and his prolonged direct eye contact are starting to freak Percy out a little. Chapter Notes. Chapters will start getting longer after this one. For all of the fuss, the week passes in a fragile monotony. Percy goes to school, doesn't make eye contact with anyone other than his new friends, and doesn't follow anyone else into dark alleyways on his way home from the bus stop. Still, he spends his evenings on the rooftop. The apartment should be comforting. It's an objectively nice place, touched with home, but he can't focus. Chiron's quilt over the mirror, the stack of books, the hippocampi on the ceiling, they only make him think of camp, of home, of the ones he couldn't save. And Tyson's fine, he's safe, but the walls of Atlantis still crumble against the ocean floor. The campers are safe, they're protected, but that quilt wrapped around the shoulders of hundreds of demigods over the years. It smells like Selena's perfume, still. He asked once. She chose the peppery rose scent because it blended well with the smoke that clung to Beckendorf from the forges. The quilt still smells like rose and smoke. Before the war, she spent days in the big house, curled underneath, waiting for the end that she thought she wanted to bring. One of the books bears a little signature in the back, Gilgamesh, translated into ancient Greek by Františekos. He'll need it for class. František was 14. A hellhound killed him. So Percy makes his supper and spends his evening on the roof, plate in hand, trying not to think, trying not to search the cloud-covered sky for Zoe. For entertainment, he watches the birds, not the gulls that swoop and dip over the harbor, but the vigilante type. The figures of Batman and Robin don't tend to come close, just one tall smudge and one short one floating together across distant rooftops. Red Robin comes the closest, dancing through the Bowery in sparks of red and black, but he doesn't touch the border to Crime Alley. That alone keeps Percy safe from bats. And for all that he hears whispers of Red Hood, it seems that Percy chose the safest place to hide. Spoiler and Black Bat only appear when Red Robin brings them, and Percy watches. It makes his heart ache to see them, if only for the way they interact. A reminder of a quest after quest. Those three, perched on a rooftop, laughter shaping the shake of their shoulders. Sometimes Spoiler brings food, and they take their break with an easy sort of levity, only to drop everything and sweep in towards some action Percy cannot hear or see. They come back sometimes, exhausted, drooping, and gather up the abandoned rooftop picnic. Sometimes they leave it, sometimes the gulls come and have a feast. Percy watches. And at night, when the sun has set and the streetlights have flickered their last attempts against the encroaching darkness, he drops down on the fire escape and waits for the nightmares to take him. They're always the same flavor of thing, even when the details change. Percy fights against monsters, against titans, against gods, against Luke. And every time he raises his sword, the figure changes. It's Annabeth, screaming in fear, or Clarice, looking more tired and resigned than Percy has ever seen her. It's Nico, furious, telling him that he may as well make it a complete set. May as well kill Nico the same as his sister, that Percy was supposed to protect them. Or it's Percy, staring into his own eyes, saying that Luke had a point, that the gods never cared about him and never will, and that he, serving under those careless gods, is condemning all of them. Every time he fails to kill them. Every time they are kept alive, as Percy is hailed as the Godslayer, the final traitor, the downfall of Olympus. He wakes before the sunrise and washes the dishes. He showers and doesn't look up as he exits, studying instead the black and white tiles of the bathroom flooring. The others talk about Joker, about the lurking danger, the concern that he broke out but hadn't started terrorizing anyone yet. His friends speak of the Joker with a grim sort of determination, just slightly to the left of normal Gotham typical grim determination, is said to them like they're absolutely certain they'll encounter him. It's clear that everyone understands, that everyone is used to this, to the possibility of death, and either places their trust in the bats to protect them or accepts that they may die. The Gotham prep kids are safer, it seems, seeing as most of them live outside the city proper or in the expensive districts, further from the Joker's usual targets. Tim and Steph speak in hushed tones about their siblings, or pseudo-siblings in Steph's case. Cass presents him with his gas mask, quietly and quickly showing him how to fasten it to his face. They worry over him, but he finds a sick sort of comfort in it. The past few years, this has been his life, the uncertainty, the endless contingencies, the hovering feeling that something terrible is going to happen and there's no real way to prepare for it. They feel natural to him. The weight makes it easier to pass the time, gives him something to focus on, strategies to devise. But a new guy shows up on Friday, jeans and a hoodie instead of the uniform, walking into the cafeteria with confidence, and he sits down at Percy's table, greeting the others like he knows them well. Percy presses his back into the wall. He looks at Percy like he knows him. "Duke," he says with a sunny smile, perfectly charming and polite, but still familiar. "These guys are my siblings." "Percy," he responds. Duke himself doesn't look familiar, but there's something about him. He has the same confidence and beauty as his siblings, but there's something more. He's glowing slightly. Percy tries not to flinch. He's glowing, the same sunshine coming from him that floods the Apollo cabin. The gold sheen to his dark skin as though he's standing beneath a bright sun, even indoors. And it's not a short thing, but if there's a demigod here, he wanted more time. He wanted to breathe without the gods, without prophecy or circumstance forcing him to fight. And if a demigod is in Gotham, he may be here with a message. Maybe telling Percy to come back, to rebuild or to fight. May bring news of another war on the horizon, another mission for the son of Poseidon, another year of campers gathering behind him, waiting for his success to grant them another year of life, waiting for him to come back, blessing in hand, so they may survive. Percy? A flinch catches him before he can smother it. You okay, man? You're shaking. Fine, he responds. They all look concerned, though not surprised. That's something he can dissect when he doesn't feel like his heart is trying to slam its way out of his ribcage. Sorry. You're good. Tim is the one to speak, head slightly tilted. What were you saying? He takes a sip from the water bottle Cass nudges his way, letting it settle him. I didn't know I was saying anything. I didn't recognize the language. Steph shrugs. Damie might, but he'd probably get stabby if he doesn't recognize it, so that's not an option. Wouldn't be my first time getting stabbed. What? Never mind. None of those stories are the ones he feels like thinking about now. You don't go to school? Duke nods, leaning his elbows on the table. I graduated early. I take night classes at Goth U. Actually, I need to steal my siblings. A heavy pause hangs over them as the other begins stacking trash on their trays, preparing to leave. Can I ask what neighborhood you live in? Bowery. Be careful. Joker likes to hit Crime Alley and the docks, so you'll be in the path. Bats will probably take care of it, yeah? I've seen Red Robin in the Bowery. I trust that guy. Something in Tim's face falls at that, shutting down before he pulls into a sad half-smile. Even the bats can't save everybody. Even after they leave, even as Percy dumps his own tray and makes his way to class, that sits with him. The way he said it, the barely hidden pain behind his words, the weight to his shoulders, they speak of the shame and grief. But this is Gotham. It wouldn't be unusual at all if Tim lost a loved one to a Joker attack, if the bats tried and failed to keep a friend or family member safe. And Tim spoke of an adoption problem, called his parent B instead of something like Dad, and that's the sort of thing that turns people bitter. That's what turned Percy angry and reckless at 12 years old, watching his mother die. The way it makes sense. This city has its own kind of war, its own custom scars that come from it. He places his hand on Riptide, saved in his pocket. Nobody should go through that, and Percy has always been willing to protect his friends. If he needs to, he'll fight for them, even if it draws attention from the bats. The bus driver stopped giving him the look, which makes Percy extra grateful that he hasn't been glaring. Maybe spending a full week riding the same bus without causing problems is enough to free him from the man's ire. But when he steps off with a quiet thanks, the bus stop isn't as empty as usual. Or the stop itself is, but a child sits on the curb beside it, watching Percy. He's blonde, maybe 11 or 12, and sharp-eyed, watching. Percy moves cautiously forward. You're not Red Hood. Nope. That should be obvious, given the lack of helmet or body armor. You've been keeping an eye on this part of Crime Alley. I guess. What do you want? Gods, he thought that Nico would have prepared him for all other slightly creepy and weirdly defensive children, but this kid and his prolonged eye contact are starting to freak Percy out a little. Nothing, I just don't like creeps. You stopped a guy from robbing Alonzo's place. The coffee shop? Yeah. The kid tilts his head, considering for a moment, before his stomach rumbles loudly. I have food in my bag, if you want. Stranger danger. That's fair. Another long moment, and then the kid's eyes widen slightly. Say coffee again. Coffee. You're from New York. Damn, kid. Way to make me feel like a stereotype. He isn't listening, though, busy standing and looking at Percy, muttering under his breath about talking to his mother, and then he turns, half positioned away, and speaks a quiet voice, almost reverent. I'm Eli. With that, the kid takes off running, a dead sprint down the dirty streets. Percy just stands there, waiting for a Hephaestus TV sort of moment, someone to pop out and tell him he's been pranked or something. Such a strange interaction has to have some sort of explanation. Nothing happens. People drift past him without looking at him, other than the guy who puts a hand too close to Percy's bag and receives a fist to the gut for it. Nothing happens. The kid doesn't come back. No more strangers approach him. Nobody speaks his name from the shadows. Well, that's that, then. Nobody bothers him the rest of the walk, though some stare as he walks past. The entrance to the apartment building is a welcome shield from eyes that follow. With his uniform, he stands out as a student of the rich kid school, and by all accounts, should be a target for muggings. He thought at first that his somewhat violent reaction saved him, but maybe it's not just that. Maybe Eli isn't the only one to confuse him for Red Hood. That alone baffles him, that anyone would confuse Percy's imitation of a normal teenager with an actual vigilante crime lord, or whatever Red Hood is. Maybe their fighting style is similar, or maybe they see anyone tall and scarred and assume they're a vigilante. Gotham is weird. His place is exactly as I left it. Sofa and a stack of books undisturbed. Dirty bowl from breakfast in the sink, refrigerator almost empty. He has a cup of rice from the other night, a bottle of lime juice, and half of a yellow onion. It takes a full minute of standing there for Percy to decide he has to go get something, even if it's only some takeout. And he can't go back out in his uniform. Wouldn't want to anyway, what with the strangulation bait tie. The fresh clothes help dispel some of his frantic energy. They're hellish, the uniform clothes. Seems that rub and the tie so tight against his neck, but he somehow forgets each day that putting on plain clothes makes him feel more human. It's easy to pick out the clothes, the same ones he keeps reaching for, and asking of comfort. Not so much physical comfort, though they are leagues above the uniform, but soft familiarity. A soft, tattered grey sweatshirt printed with the name of some Canadian park, a gift from Thalia, and a pair of jeans that Clarice grew out of when she was 14. Thick and warm and only slightly splattered around the cuffs with what was either rust-color paint or dried blood. They feel almost protective. After she punched him, Clarice left a pile of clothes on the doorstep of his cabin. It's as close to acceptance as he can ask for. And the jeans fit, soft, worn, and slightly baggy. He sits on the edge of the bed and stares at his hands, trying not to think as the sun sets. He does that a lot these days, trying not to think. The quilt scents his room in rose and smoke. He leaves the apartment smelling like ozone, leather, and something slightly bloody. Gotham night looks different from the ground. It's harder to see the beauty when the lights are only lights, no stars in sight. When the bats are myths rather than smudges against the sky. He should have left earlier for food, should have gotten out and back before nightfall. Shadow shifts in his periphery. Shouts call to him from the alleys. Percy keeps his eyes forward and makes his way quietly through the Bowery. Only a block separates him from the little Italian place he saw on his errands when he hears a kid calling for him. And he decides against trouble for the night. But if a kid's asking... It hits him then. What's unsettling him? The kid is calling his name. Riptide is in his hands before he has a moment to think. body pivoting towards the noise and falling into a defensive position as he looks wildly for the source. "Percy!" He looks up. There, leaning out of a window on the second floor of one of his little apartment buildings, is Eli. "Percy!" The boy waves him closer. "Dude," he doesn't tuck Riptide away yet. "Please stop sharing my name with the entire street." "Stay there!" There's a moment of consideration, but he does stay. If the kid needs his help, is asking for it, then he'll help. He wants to anyway. If he can't help, he wants to. But when Eli arrives at the building door, she's not alone. There's a woman in tow, no older than 40, with a glow that Percy recognizes. Her voice is only more damning. When she speaks, her voice sounds like music. "Eli was pretty excited to meet you." He raises his eyebrows at the kid. Nothing about his experience makes sense. "She said you wouldn't be in Gotham, but I knew you weren't the Red Hood." This is a deeply unsettling conversation, and even if the kid hasn't done anything to hurt him, he's glad he didn't sheath the sword. The woman doesn't seem like a monster, but demigods can be monsters too. "Do I know you?" "I heard mentions," she says carefully, "rumors based on things that old horse of a camp director said." "You were a camper." He thought he was safe. He thought he could escape in Gotham. "Are they sending a message for me?" The woman plants a gentle hand on Eli's head. "No, they sent us here 15 years ago, knowing it wasn't safe. We all stayed." "You didn't fight?" "No." Suddenly the sweatshirt feels too warm, stifling. He burns, jaw clenching, fist flexing against the grip of the sword, a familiar feel tugging in his gut. "Percy?" The kid draws his attention again, curious and unafraid. "My mom said you saved us." This is what gets Percy to slip the cap back onto Riptide, dropping it in his pocket. Eli's just a kid, like so many that Percy taught in sword fighting over the years, like so many he protected, like so many he failed to protect. He falls into a squat, even with the kid. "I don't know about that, but I sure did try." "You did." His mother. The kid is at least a quarter godly. "I'm good at healing. That's what I do after school. Mom gets me bandages and stuff, and I patch up the kids in the alley." "That's good. You're helping a lot of people, Eli." The mother clears her throat, an odd look on her face. "Why are you out so late?" "Getting food. I forgot to do my grocery shopping earlier in the day." "Come inside. I made enough to share." And maybe it would be safe, but there's only one thought echoing over and over in his head. She knew. She knew about the war, about the threat, about all of it, and she wasn't there. She wasn't there. Someone older, someone with a little more life experience, for Hades' sake, even another body to hold a weapon, she could have helped. And she didn't. Only 2 weeks ago, she was safe in Gotham while Percy fought, and she knew. She didn't help at all. "No thanks." He rises and ruffles the kid's hair, ignoring the awestruck look on his face. "You know where to find me if you need me, yeah? Even if you just need help patching someone up." "Best stop?" "Only if it's safe. You have a weapon?" "Slingshot." "That can be dangerous if you use it well." "Percy." The woman delivers only a sad smile. "Have you found work?" "No. I've been needing a hand around my shop. Coffee place next to Jenny's. If you come by tomorrow, we can talk paying hours." He closes his eyes. He hates her right now, a hatred he can't quite bury. A bitter taste at the idea that she'll offer help now but couldn't lift a finger for the friends he lost. But he does need money. Groceries aren't free. Okay. Eli waves as they make their way back inside. Percy waves back and ignores the heavy feeling of the woman's eyes. He can have plain rice for dinner. Walking even a step further seems like a trial, talking to another person even more so. Once back, he takes his rice to the roof and makes up constellations in the light that flicker over the harbor. The bats aren't out tonight. The clouds obscure the moon. Though he wants to, Percy doesn't cry. He does not think. He just watches the lights of the harbor. Chapter notes. I pinky promise Jason will appear soon. Notes from this chapter. Percy. Not the first time I've been stabbed. Steph, Cass, Tim and Duke. How do you get more concerning every time you open your mouth? Also, Duke. Hi! Prissy, shaking, muttering in ancient Greek, pressing his back against the wall. Tim. Yeah, that's a normal reaction to people being nice and cheery. Open bracket. Feel free to leave a comment if you feel so inclined. Close bracket. Voiceover note. So I have decided not to do any accents, or at least not any heavy ones, especially not a New York accent, because I cannot, for the life of me, figure out how to do that. So I know that the scene with pronouncing coffee was not in any way realistic, but I didn't even want to try. It was too much. Okay, bye.